It's been a year since I built my backyard mini ramp, and what a year it's been. Whew. There's been plenty of thrills and spills and general excitement along the way. Some of you have been kind enough to message in and inquire as to how the ramp has been holding up, especially through these winter months. We've had a fair few heavy frosts and quite a bit of wetness. Spring is just around the corner, so it seems like a good time to do a bit of ramp maintenance, fix her up, get her ready for the summer, and reflect on the various decisions and choices I made when I designed and constructed the ramp a year ago. First up, I had a quick look round the ramp, and I'm pretty delighted that the ramp is structurally sound. The frame is holding together nicely, and there's no signs of delamination anywhere on the riding surface or on the plywood that forms the transitions. I think this is because I got a lucky bit of advice from a carpenter friend of mine who said that I should get good quality plywood from the local timber merchant. So I went for BB grade birch ply, and that seems to have held up nicely. I recorded a second mini ramp video where I made a few adjustments and added some extensions to the decks. For one of those decks, I was a little bit lazy and went for the convenience of my local high street DIY centre and got some plywood from there, and oh my gosh, all I can say is I'm glad I didn't get all my plywood from there. That is delaminated. It's been bugging me for a while, so that seemed like a fitting place to start my ramp revamp. This one was a nice easy fix. I just whipped out that old ply and went and got myself a couple of 18mm planks. At £6 each, this was a nice cheap and easy fix, and the results when painted were pretty pleasing. The steel coping is holding up. Those of you who watched the first Build a Mini Ramp video will know that I fitted some makeshift concrete coping. It was really fun to ride, but unfortunately it didn't wear that well. So I replaced it with steel coping, and I've never looked back. I've been getting annoyed with the board getting muddy when I veer and cavort off the side of the ramp. So I took the liberty of putting down some stones and gravel down the side, and that's been a really good fix for that muddy strip alongside the fence. I also tarted up the look of the ramp by fitting some solar powered disco lights. They worked really well and looked nice, but unfortunately I managed to break them during a session, so those will need replacing. I recorded a third video where I put some sound dampening inside the ramp. I also blocked off the ends and also put some sound deadening inside the coping. This seems to have been nicely effective. However, the biggest difference in sound dampening is using softer wheels. I've recently been cavorting around on my Surfskate that has 78A Durameter wheels, and whooshing backwards and forwards, it's just a nice quiet and then you hit the coping, and there's also a dull thud when you drop in or land a trick. Also, those nippers, they love getting on there with their scooters. Those scooters have 88A Durameter wheels, so still nice and soft, and when they're whizzing back and forth, again, the sound is pretty dampened. The main wear and tear has been to the paint on the plywood surface. I think the main reason that that plywood surface is structurally okay is, number one, I use a cover, and to keep that cover off of the plywood and to stop any water pooling, I just pull a bit of rope nice and tight down the middle, and that makes a bit of a tent so that all the water can roll off. I also use bungee cords, so when there's a stiff breeze, she doesn't pull the eyelets out. The second reason is I painted the surface with masonry paint. This masonry paint is pretty bog standard stuff, but I've given it quite a few coats, and it seems to have really helped for the odd time that the ramp has got as wet as an otter's pocket, or when the ramp got really icy and frosty. However, some of this paint has come off. I've been learning to do my reverts, and that revert process, has scuffed some of that paint off. Also, just the general wear and tear and the frost has made some of that lift off. So it's time to give the ramp a lick of paint. First thing I did is just get a key into the existing paint by sanding all of the surfaces all over. There's also some heavy areas of wear that could do with a bit of filler. Over the past year, I've experimented with brands of wood filler, and I find that they all just eventually crack and come out because the wood flexes so much. So I've ended up concocting my own custom wood filler. This is simply a bit of bog standard white wood glue with sawdust mixed into it. The sawdust provides some tensile strength, and then you can just pop that in any damaged areas. It will help to seal up the wood, and I find the wood glue moves and bends a bit more with the wood, doesn't tend to crack. So give that a sand back, and then she's ready for a lick of paint. I applied 2 nice thick coats with a roller on the end of a broomstick, and that was really satisfying to get a nice finish and cover up all those areas of wear. I also took the liberty of refreshing my fake tile feature. This is simply a different colour blue painted in, bit of masking tape, and then I used a silver marker to etch in the sort of fake grouting lines. Now this makes no difference to the functionality of the ramp, but it does appeal to the child in me, and it helps to create that skate pool aesthetic. Overall, I've been pretty impressed by the way the masonry paint is performed. It's also pretty handy if there's a little spot of rain mid-session. Just grab a towel off a surface, and it dries a lot quicker than untreated plywood would. So following the repainting, I left it 48 hours to get that surface nicely cured, and I couldn't wait to get on there and try putting together a few lines. Really nice to have the ramp back to its former glory. Really nice and smooth and grippy. Oh yeah. So here are my overall reflections on 1 year's worth of ramp use. Number 1, the use of quality plywood. I'm pretty pleased I got that tip to get the higher quality plywood. I think it's fair to say if you use the poorer quality plywood, you're going to end up buying twice. Number 2, the use of a cover and also the painting of all the surfaces of the wood has definitely helped boost the longevity of the ramp. Number 3, reflections on the design. When I was designing this ramp, my main goal was to provide something that I could progress on quickly. So I went round all the local ramps which I felt were too tall or too steep, and I came up with a design that I felt would be suitable. A year on, I think that design has definitely helped me to progress. I've put all the dimensions of the ramp in the description. You might also want to go back and check out the original video of the build. That will take you through the process and also outline all of those dimensions as you go. I think the key thing that I change, and it's going to be my next project, is a tightening of the radius of the ramp. I think the initial radius that I chose, which was 6.5 foot, definitely helped me with the confidence of re-entering the ramp, jumping back in off of tricks, and also coming back in off of stalls. However, that mellower radius is not as helpful for doing tricks where you pop out of the top, or tricks where you need a lot of speed going into the other side of the coping. So now that I've progressed a bit, I am yearning for a slightly whippier, steeper ramp. I'm also finding it's a little bit of a step up to take the tricks that I've learnt on my backyard mini ramp and adapt them to the ramps in all the local skate parks. So it'd be pretty handy to have a radius that's comparable in difficulty to the local ramps, so that I know that when I've got the trick on my backyard mini ramp, I can easily take it into the local skate parks. I've also come up with the idea of a movable extension. This is simply going to be a 1 foot box with a little bit of transition on it and 1 bit of plywood that overlaps the coping with a bit of metal to feed it into the transition and a bit of coping on top. This means I can place it around the ramp and it'll give me some extra speed to set up for frontside grinds, backside grinds, or any tricks where I need a little bit more zip going into them. So that's it for the 1 year review and mini ramp makeover. Whew, that was well worth doing. If you're new to the channel, feel free to hit subscribe. I make new videos every week. Also, feel free to pop over to Instagram and you can follow me at John Bishop Skate to get regular updates. As ever, my name's been John Bishop and I'm a middle-aged guy pottering around fixing up my backyard mini ramp.